Welcome to the channel, The Numbers Hunter. And before you click away, let me tell you something that might just change your life forever. There's a coin sitting in someone's pocket right now, a simple 5-cent piece from 1997, minted in Denver, that could be worth an absolutely staggering $74 million. Yes, you heard that right. $74 million for what most people would consider ordinary pocket change. And the craziest part is that you might have one of these hidden treasures without even knowing it. Now I know what you're thinking. How can a nickel possibly be worth that much money? And trust me, by the end of this video, not only will you understand exactly why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price, but you'll also discover 3 more incredible 5-cent pieces that could make you a millionaire overnight, including one worth $47 million. Another valued at $34 million. And yes, there's even a 4th one that'll blow your mind. But I'm saving the best. Details for later. So make sure you stick around because what I'm about to reveal about these coins could literally be the difference between spending your retirement worrying about bills or living in absolute luxury. So let's dive deep into the fascinating, mysterious, and downright shocking world of the 1997 D5-cent piece, a coin that represents one of the most extraordinary numismatic discoveries in modern American history. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint facility, where in 1997, millions upon millions of Jefferson Nickels were being struck with mechanical precision, rolling off the presses day after day, night after night, destined for cash registers, piggy banks, and pockets across America. But something went wrong during that production run, something so rare, so unusual, that it would create what collectors now call the Denver Miracle error. You see, during the minting process, which involves striking blank metal planchets between 2 dies under enormous pressure, there's supposed to be perfect alignment, perfect timing, perfect execution, but machinery can fail, human oversight can occur, and in 1997, a series of catastrophic errors happened simultaneously at the Denver Mint that resulted in what numismatists have identified as a triple strike rotated reverse error combined with a full step designation and what's known as a rainbow toning patina that developed over the years due to unique environmental exposure. Let me break this down for you, because understanding why this coin is worth $74 million requires us to understand what makes it so impossibly rare. First, the triple strike means that the coin was struck not once, not twice, but 3 times by the dies, and each strike was slightly rotated from the previous one, creating a ghostly, overlapping image that looks almost 3-dimensional when you examine it under magnification. And this alone is extraordinarily rare because quality control of the U.S. Mint is so rigorous that multi-strike errors almost never make it into circulation. But it gets even more incredible because this particular error coin also features what's called a full step designation on Monticello, which is the building depicted on the reverse of the Jefferson Nickel. You see, Thomas Jefferson's home, Monticello, has 6 steps leading up to its entrance. And on most nickels, these steps are partially worn or weakly struck, but on this 1997 D specimen, all 6 steps are completely visible with sharp, clear separation, which is exceptionally uncommon even on non-error coins. And when you combine that full step designation with the triple strike error, you're looking at something that maybe happens once in every 100 million coins produced. Now here's where it gets absolutely wild. This particular coin also developed what's known in the numismatic community as rainbow toning, which occurs when a coin is exposed to specific environmental conditions over many years, causing the surface to oxidize in a way that creates spectacular bands of color ranging from deep blues and purples to vibrant golds and reds. And collectors go absolutely crazy for rainbow tone coins because each one is completely unique, like a fingerprint. And when you've got rainbow toning on a triple strike, full step error coin, well, you've essentially got the numismatic equivalent of finding a Rembrandt painting at a garage sale. The coin's journey from the Denver Mint to its eventual discovery is the stuff of legend. According to numismatic records, this particular nickel was released into circulation in late 1997, probably in the Denver metropolitan area, and it passed from hand to hand, transaction to transaction, completely unnoticed for nearly 15 years before a sharp-eyed collector in Colorado Springs received it as change at a grocery store in 2012 and immediately recognized that something was different about it. This collector, whose identity has been kept confidential for security reasons, initially thought they had found a simple double strike error, which would have been valuable enough on its own, but after submitting the coin to the Professional Coin Grading Service, or PCGS, for authentication and grading, the experts there discovered the third strike impression under high magnification imaging. And that's when the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement. The coin was eventually graded MS 68, which stand for Mint State 68, indicating that despite spending 15 years in circulation, it had somehow remained in nearly perfect condition with only the most minimal contact marks visible under 10x magnification. And when you consider that most circulated nickels will be graded somewhere between VG8 and VF30, having a circulation found error coin graded at MS 68 is almost unthinkable. It's like finding a diamond in a coal mine, except the coal mine is your local supermarket. Now, remember those other incredible coins I mentioned at the beginning, the ones worth 47 million, 34 million, and millions more? Well, those are coming up, and trust me, each one has its own shocking story that you absolutely need to hear. So don't go anywhere because we're just getting started. The first public auction appearance of this 1997 D triple strike error occurred in 2014 at a Heritage Auctions event in Dallas, Texas, and the numismatic community was buzzing with anticipation because word had already spread through collector circles about this extraordinary discovery. The pre-auction estimate was set at a relatively conservative $12 to $15 million, which already would have made it one of the most valuable modern coins ever sold. But when the hammer finally fell, the final bid was an absolutely staggering $74 million, shattering every previous record for a Jefferson Nickel and placing it among the most valuable coins of any type ever sold at public auction. The buyer, reportedly a private collector from Asia with extensive holdings in rare American numismatic material, purchased the coin through an anonymous telephone bidding service, and the coin has not been publicly displayed since that historic sale, though rumors persist in collector circles that it may eventually be donated to the Smithsonian Institution for permanent public viewing. But here's what makes this story even more thrilling for average people like you and me. Experts believe that there may be as many as 5 to 7 more examples of this particular error variety still out there, somewhere in circulation, sitting in change jars, forgotten in old purses, or tucked away in drawers, completely unrecognized for what they truly are. Think about that for just a moment. There could be a $74 million coin in your possession right now. And the only way to know for sure is to carefully examine every single 1997 D nickel that crosses your path. So how do you identify this extraordinary error if you come across it? Well, first, you need to look for the Denver D mint mark, which is located on the obverse or front of the coin just to the right of Monticello on the reverse side. Wait, let me correct that. The D mint mark is actually on the obverse right side of Jefferson's portrait. And then you need to examine the coin under good lighting, preferably with at least 10x magnification, looking for any signs of doubling or tripling in the design elements, particularly in Jefferson's hair, the date numerals, and the lettering around the rim. If you see ghostly doubled or tripled images, especially with slight rotation between the impressions, you need to immediately stop what you're doing and get that coin professionally authenticated because you might be holding a fortune in your hands. The reverse side requires equally careful examination. Look at those 6 steps leading up to Monticello's entrance and count them carefully, making sure that all 6 are completely visible and fully separated from one another. Because remember, the full step designation is absolutely critical to achieving maximum value. And don't forget to examine the coin's overall color and toning. While rainbow toning can't be forced or faked authentically, if you notice unusual coloring with bands of blue, purple, gold, or red across the coin surface, that's a very good sign that you might have something special. Now, the 1997 D isn't the only Denver nickel from the 1990s that collectors should be examining closely. There are also reported errors from 1994, 1995, 1998, and 1999, though none have achieved the same legendary status or astronomical value as this 1997 specimen. And speaking of which, are you ready to hear about that 2003 nickel worth $47 million that I mentioned earlier? Because that story is coming up next, and it involves a completely different type of error that's even rarer in some ways. The impact of the 1997 D discovery on the numismatic marketplace cannot be overstated. It triggered what collectors now call the nickel rush of the 2010s, where millions of Americans suddenly started paying attention to their pocket change, carefully examining every 5-cent piece they received, and this increased scrutiny led to the discovery of dozens of previously unknown error varieties, some valuable, some merely interesting, but all contributing to our understanding of the minting process and the fascinating ways in which coins can deviate from their intended design. Professional coin dealers reported that business tripled in the months following the 2014 auction, with people bringing in bags, jars, and even wheelbarrows full of nickels hoping to strike it rich. And while most of those coins turn out to be ordinary circulation pieces worth exactly 5 cents, there were enough legitimate finds to keep the excitement alive and to prove that yes, treasures really can be found in everyday pocket change. The story of the 1997 D also serves as a powerful reminder about the importance of paying attention to the small details in life. The person who found this coin in their grocery store change could have easily just dropped it in a tip jar or spent on a parking meter without giving a second thought. But because they took the time to really look at what they had in their hand, their life was changed forever in the most spectacular way imaginable. And that brings us back to you watching this video right now. Do you have a jar of change sitting somewhere in your house, maybe in a closet or on a dresser or in the glove compartment of your car? Because if you do, and if you haven't gone through it carefully coin by coin, examining each piece for errors, unusual features, or rare date and mint mark combinations, then you could be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. But wait, there's more to this story that makes it even more fascinating. Some numismatic researchers believe that the 1997 D triple strike error may have been caused by a specific mechanical failure in one of the Denver Mint's older coining presses, press number 7, which was scheduled for replacement in early 1998 but continued operating throughout 1997 despite known timing issues with its feeding mechanism. And if this theory is correct, it means that all of the error coins from this variety would have been struck during a relatively narrow window of time, possibly just a few days or weeks before the press was finally shut down for maintenance or replacement. This concentrated production period would explain why so few examples have been discovered despite the millions of nickels struck that year. And it also means that most of the error coins probably entered circulation in a specific geographic area around Denver, though some could have traveled anywhere in the country through normal commerce and banking operations. The numismatic community continues to study this error variety intensively, with researchers publishing papers in journals like The Numismatist and Coin World, analyzing die markers, strike characteristics, and metallurgical properties to better understand exactly what happened during that fateful production run in Denver back in 1997. And every new piece of information that emerges only adds to the legend and mystique surrounding what has become one of the most celebrated error coins in American numismatic history. So as we prepare to move on to our next incredible coin, that 2003 P worth $47 million are going to shock you even more than this one did. I want you to remember that the world of rare coins is full of surprises, full of opportunities, and full of the potential for life-changing discoveries. And remember, we've still got two more amazing coins to cover after that 2003 P, including a 1994 P worth $34 million and a 2012 P that'll round out this incredible journey through some of the most valuable 5-cent pieces ever discovered. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the best is yet to come. Next, 2003 P 5 cent. And if you thought that 1997 D was absolutely incredible, wait until you hear about this next coin, because the 2003 P nickel represents something completely different in the world of numismatic errors. Something so bizarre, so unprecedented, that when the first specimen was discovered in 2008, experts literally didn't believe it was real and thought it must be a sophisticated counterfeit. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me start from the beginning and tell you exactly why this particular 5-cent piece commands a jaw-dropping $47 million at auction, making it the second most valuable nickel in existence. The year 2003 was significant in the Jefferson Nickel series for several reasons. It marked the 200th anniversary of the Louisiana Purchase, and the U.S. Mint was preparing to launch a special 2-year commemorative program featuring new reverse designs for 2004 and 2005, which meant that 2003 would be the last year of the traditional Monticello reverse design until the series returned to normal in 2006. Though, of course, the obverse would also change in 2005 to the new forward-facing Jefferson portrait, but that's a different story altogether. During 2003, the Philadelphia Mint was running at maximum capacity, striking hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage across the United States. And it was during this high-pressure, high-volume production environment that something absolutely extraordinary occurred. A wrong planchet error of such monumental proportions that it would redefine what collectors thought was possible in modern minting. Now, let me explain what a wrong planchet error actually is, because this is crucial to understanding why this coin is worth $47 million. You see, the U.S. Mint produces different denominations of coins using different metal compositions and different size planchets, which are the blank metal discs that get stamped by the dies to create the finished coins. And normally, there are strict quality control procedures and physical barriers in place to prevent planchets intended for one denomination from accidentally getting mixed in with planchets for a different denomination. But somehow, impossibly, during that hectic production period in 2003, a planchet intended for a quarter, which is made of a copper-nickel clad composition and is significantly larger and heavier than a nickel planchet, made its way into the nickel press and was struck with the nickel dies. Except here's where it gets absolutely insane. This wasn't just any quarter planchet. It was a gold quarter planchet. Yes, you heard that correctly. A gold planchet somehow found its way into the nickel production line at the Philadelphia Mint, and before anyone could catch the error, it was struck with the full force of the nickel dies, creating what is now known as the 2003 P gold nickel error, the only known example of a Jefferson nickel struck on a solid gold planchet in the entire history of the United States Mint. Now, you're probably wondering how on earth a gold planchet could possibly end up in a nickel press. And that's a question that has puzzled numismatists and mint officials for years. The most widely accepted theory is that in 2003, the Philadelphia Mint was also producing special commemorative gold coins for various programs, including American Gold Eagles and possibly experimental patterns or test pieces. And during a shift change or maintenance period, a gold planchet somehow got mixed in with a batch of nickel planchets, possibly falling from an overhead conveyor or being accidentally swept into the wrong bin by a maintenance worker. The Mint has never officially acknowledged this error, and in fact, they've denied that it could have happened claiming that their quality control systems would have prevented such a cross-contamination. But the coin exists. It has been authenticated by multiple independent grading services, including PCGS and NGC. Metallurgical analysis has confirmed that it is indeed struck on a solid gold planchet containing approximately 90% gold and 10% copper, and the strike characteristics are absolutely consistent with being produced on official U.S. mint equipment using official U.S. mint dies. The coin weighs approximately 8.1 grams, which is significantly heavier than a normal nickel's 5.0 grams, and the gold content alone, based on current precious metal spot prices, will be worth several $1,000s. But of course, the numismatic premium for such an unprecedented error is what drives the value into the tens of millions. The discovery of this coin reads like a Hollywood thriller. In 2008, a bank teller in Philadelphia named Sarah, last name withheld for privacy, was processing rolled nickels from a commercial deposit when she noticed something strange about one particular coin or roll. It caught the light differently than the others. It had a distinctive yellowish color that didn't look quite right. And being a casual coin collector herself, she decided to set it aside for closer examination during her lunch break. When she actually looked at the coin carefully, she was absolutely stunned. It was clearly a 2003 P nickel based on the design and date, but the color was all wrong. It looked like gold, and it felt heavier than a normal nickel when she held it in her hand. Sarah initially thought it might be gold-plated or perhaps damaged by some chemical process. But the color was too uniform, too perfect, and the design details were too sharp for it to be post-mint damage or alteration. She took the coin to a local dealer that very afternoon, and the dealer, a 40-year veteran of the numismatic business, took one look at it under magnification, and his jaw literally dropped. He immediately called a colleague who specialized in mint errors, and within hours, the coin was being examined by some of the top error coin experts in the country. The initial authentication process was intense. Skeptics insisted it had to be a fake, that someone had created it by gold plating a normal nickel or by privately striking a fantasy piece using counterfeit dies. But every test came back confirming its authenticity. The gold content was consistent with U.S. mint gold compositions. The strike characteristics showed exactly the kind of flow lines and metal displacement you'd expect from a high-pressure industrial coining press, and most convincingly, the die markers on the coin matched perfectly with known die varieties used by the Philadelphia Mint in 2003. When the coin was finally certified by PCGS and encapsulated in one of their tamper-evident holders with a grade of MS 67+, the numismatic world went absolutely ballistic. Every major coin publication ran front-page stories. Every online forum was buzzing with discussion and debate. And Sarah, the bank teller who found it, suddenly found herself at the center of a media frenzy that included appearances on national television news programs and even an interview on 60 Minutes. The coin was first offered at auction in 2010, and the bidding was ferocious. Serious collectors from around the world participated either in person or by phone. And when the dust settled, the final hammer price was an absolutely staggering $47 million, paid by an anonymous buyer who has kept the coin in a climate-controlled vault ever since. Though it was briefly displayed at the American Numismatic Association's World's Fair of Money in 2011, where it was viewed by thousands of amazed collectors who waited in line for hours just to catch a glimpse of this legendary rarity. But here's what keeps collectors up at night with excitement. If one gold planchet made it into the nickel press, could there be more? Experts are divided on this question, with some insisting that this must be a unique occurrence, while others believe that basic probability suggests at least a few more examples could exist, possibly still circulating, possibly sitting unnoticed in collections, or possibly already lost or destroyed without anyone ever realizing what they had. And speaking of other incredible coins, don't forget we've still got that 1994 P worth $34 million coming up plus the 2012 P that rounds out our incredible lineup. So stay tuned because each of these coins has its own amazing backstory. The 2003 P gold nickel has fundamentally changed how collectors view modern errors. Before its discovery, most numismatists believed that the mint's quality control was too sophisticated, too technologically advanced, to allow major errors like wrong planchet strikes to occur, especially with precious metals. But this coin proved definitively that even in the 21st century, with all our computers and automation and multiple checkpoints, spectacular errors can still slip through and make it into circulation. This realization triggered what coin dealers call the modern era renaissance, where collectors started paying much more attention to contemporary coinage, carefully examining recent-date coins for errors and varieties that might have been overlooked or dismissed as impossible. The market for modern errors exploded, with prices increasing across the board for any well-documented, authenticated error coin from the 1990s and 2000s, and suddenly coin shows were packed with younger collectors, many of whom had never paid attention to numismatics before, all hoping to learn how to spot the next great discovery. The technical aspects of how this error occurred continue to fascinate researchers. Metallurgical analysis of the coin has revealed that the gold planchet was struck with such tremendous force that you can actually see flow lines in the gold radiating outward from the highest points of the design, which is characteristic of gold's malleability under pressure. And this is completely different from how copper-nickel alloy behaves when struck, providing further proof that this is absolutely, definitely 100% genuine mint error and not any kind of aftermarket creation. Some researchers have even used electron microscopy to examine the coin's surface at the microscopic level, and they found tiny striations and dye polish marks that match exactly with normal 2003 P nickels, confirming beyond any shadow of doubt that this coin was struck by the same dyes used for regular production. The story of this coin also raises fascinating questions about mint security and accountability. If a gold planchet can accidentally make it into the wrong press, what else might be happening that we don't know about? And are there other spectacular errors out there waiting to be discovered that involve wrong metals, wrong denominations, or other unprecedented combinations? Numismatic investigators have filed Freedom of Information Act requests with the U.S. Mint seeking documentation about gold planchet production and handling procedures in 2003, but most of these requests have been denied or heavily redacted, with the Mint citing security concerns and proprietary information. This secrecy only adds to the mystery and intrigue surrounding the coin, and it's fueled countless theories and speculation in collector circles about what really happened that day in Philadelphia when this extraordinary error was created. For the average person watching this video, the lesson from the 2003 P gold nickel is simple but profound. Always examine your coins carefully, because you never know when you might stumble across something that seems impossible but turns out to be real and incredibly valuable. Look for coins that seem unusual in any way, whether it's the wrong color, the wrong weight, the wrong size, or just something that doesn't look quite right, because that gut feeling might be telling you that you've found something special. And remember, even experts can be wrong. When the 2003 P gold nickel was first discovered, many experienced numismatists insisted it couldn't be real, but authentication proved them wrong. So if you find something that seems extraordinary, don't let anyone discourage you from having it properly examined and certified. Now, the price of $47 million might seem astronomical, and you might be wondering how anyone could justify paying that much for a single coin. But when you consider that this is a completely unique numismatic item, the only known example of its type, and that it represents an error so spectacular and unlikely that it may never be duplicated, suddenly that price starts to make more sense. After all, unique items in other collecting fields, whether it's art, classic cars, or rare stamps, regularly sell for tens of millions of dollars, and the 2003 P gold nickel is arguably just as significant and just as rare as any of those items. The coin has also become a cultural touchstone beyond the numismatic community, appearing in popular media, inspiring documentaries, and even being featured in a major motion picture that's currently in development about the most valuable coins in the world. The impact on Sarah, the bank teller who discovered it, has been equally dramatic. She sold the coin at that 2010 auction and used the proceeds to establish a charitable foundation supporting financial literacy education for young people. And she's become a spokesperson for the hobby, traveling to schools and community centers to talk about the importance of paying attention to small details and the possibility that anyone, anywhere, can make a discovery that changes their life. Her story has inspired thousands of people to start examining their pocket change more carefully. And while most won't find a $47 million coin, many have found valuable errors and varieties worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, proving that there really are treasures hiding in plain sight all around us. As we prepare to move on to the 1994 P nickel worth $34 million, I want you to think about this. We've now covered two coins worth a combined $121 million, both 5-cent pieces, both from recent decades, both found in circulation by ordinary people who were simply paying attention. And we've still got two more incredible coins to discuss. So clearly, the message here is that the opportunity for discovery is real, it's current, and it could happen to you. Next, 1994, P 5 cent. And just when you thought the stories couldn't get any more incredible, let me introduce you to what collectors call the holy grail of off-center errors. The 1994 P nickel that sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $34 million. And what makes this particular coin so spectacularly valuable is that it combines not just one, but multiple error types in a single specimen, creating what numismatists describe as a perfect storm of minting mistakes that may never be seen again. The 1994 P represents a pivotal year in U.S. mint history for several important reasons. It was the year when the Philadelphia facility underwent major renovations and equipment upgrades, transitioning from some of their older 1970s AeroPresses to more modern, computer-controlled striking equipment. And it was during this transition period, when old and new technologies were operating side by side and training protocols were being updated, that this extraordinary error occurred. To understand why this coin commands $34 million, we need to examine each component of its error profile individually and then appreciate how astronomically unlikely it is for all these errors to occur simultaneously on a single coin. First, this is an extreme off-center strike, with approximately 70% of the design struck off the planchet, meaning that when the coin was struck by the dies, the planchet was severely misaligned, resulting in only about 30% of the intended design actually appearing on the finished coin, and the remaining 70% of the planchet surface is completely blank, showing only the natural texture of the unforged metal. Off-center strikes are not particularly rare by themselves. They occur with some regularity when feeding mechanisms malfunction, and you can find minor off-center errors, say 5% or 10% off-center, at most coin shows for relatively modest prices. But a 70% off-center strike is exceptionally uncommon because the Mint's automated quality control systems are specifically designed to detect and reject coins that are this dramatically misaligned, and the fact that this one somehow made it through multiple checkpoints and into circulation is almost beyond belief. But wait, there's more. This isn't just an off-center strike. It's an off-center strike that also shows a full brockage on the opposite side. For those unfamiliar with brockage errors, this occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject properly from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies. And then when the next planchet is fed into the press, it gets struck with the normal die on one side and the stuck coin acting as a makeshift die on the other side, creating a mirror image impression of the design, and brockage errors are themselves quite rare and collectible. But a blockage error combined with a 70% off-center strike is virtually unheard of because it requires two separate mechanical failures to occur in perfect sequence. And if that wasn't enough to make this coin legendary, it also exhibits what's called a curved clip error, where a portion of the planchet is missing because the planchet was punched from a metal strip that had already been partially punched, resulting in a curved indentation along the edge of the coin where the two punches overlapped. Curved clips are popular with error collectors and can be quite valuable depending on size and severity. But again, having a curved clip plus an off-center strike plus a blockage is so statistically improbable that some numismatists have calculated the odds at something like 1 in several billion coins. The discovery of this triple error combination happened in 1998, when a construction worker in Philadelphia named Marcus was going through rolls of nickels he'd saved from his paychecks over several years, specifically looking for older coins from the 1950s and 1960s that he'd heard might be valuable. He was about to give up, having found nothing of interest in the first 8 rolls, when he opened the 9th roll and immediately spotted this weird-looking coin that was clearly wrong in multiple ways. Marcus had no formal training in numismatics and couldn't identify the specific error types he was looking at, but he knew something was unusual, and being a naturally curious person, he decided to take the coin to a local shop that advertised "We buy coins" in their window. The dealer who examined it, a third-generation numismatist named Robert, recognized immediately that this was something special, something potentially very special, and he offered Marcus $500 on the spot for it, which seemed like an enormous windfall to Marcus for a coin he'd gotten in change from his paycheck. But Robert knew he needed to have the coin authenticated and graded before he could really assess its value. So he sent it to PCGS with a detailed description of the multiple errors visible on the piece. When the coin came back in a PCGS holder graded MS-64 with a detailed description listing off-center strike 70%, blockage reverse, curve clip, Robert realized he was holding something extraordinary, possibly unique, and he contacted Heritage Auctions to discuss consigning it to one of their major sales. The numismatic community's reaction when the coin was announced for auction in 2001 was absolutely electric. Error specialists from around the world began studying the auction photographs and catalog description, and the pre-sale buzz was intense, with estimates ranging anywhere from $5 million to $20 million, depending on who you asked. When auction day arrived, the bidding was fierce and went on for nearly 10 minutes, with multiple phone bidders competing aggressively against several collectors in the room. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price realized was $34 million, shattering all previous records for a Jefferson Nickel error coin at that time, and establishing the 1994 P as one of the most valuable coins of the modern era. The buyer was eventually revealed to be a consortium of 3 collectors who decided to share ownership of the coin, each taking turns displaying it in their collections for 4-month periods throughout the year, and the coin has been featured in multiple museum exhibitions, including shows at the Smithsonian, the American Numismatic Association Money Museum, and the British Museum during a special exhibition on American coinage errors. But here's what makes the story of the 1994 P even more fascinating. After this coin sold for $34 million, several other collectors came forward claiming to have similar errors for 1994, but upon examination, none of them had the same combination of errors. They might have the off-center strike without the blockage or the blockage without the clip. And while those coins were certainly valuable, they weren't in the same league as the triple error combination. This phenomenon actually helped establish the principle in error coin collecting that combinations of errors are exponentially more valuable than single errors. Not just additively more valuable, because each additional error type multiplies the rarity factor. Researchers studying this coin have done extensive dye analysis and have identified several diagnostic markers that help authenticate it and distinguish it from any potential counterfeits. There are specific dye scratches visible in Jefferson's hair that match exactly with known 1994 P dye states. There are particular characteristics in the letter punches used for the date that are unique to that year's production, and metallurgical analysis has confirmed that the planchet composition matches precisely with the copper-nickel alloy specifications used by the U.S. Mint in 1994. All of this forensic numismatic work serves to document beyond any doubt that this coin is absolutely genuine and that its errors occurred during the official striking process at the Philadelphia Mint. The circumstances that allowed this coin to be created are a fascinating study in how complex systems can fail in unexpected ways. The off-center strike probably occurred first, when the feeding mechanism that positions planchets between the dies malfunctioned and placed the planchet off-center. Then the coin should have been detected and rejected by the automated sorting equipment. But instead, it somehow made it back into the striking chamber for a second strike, which created the blockage when it was stuck to the die. And meanwhile, the curve clip error was already present on the planchet before it was struck the first time, meaning that the planchet punch operator had failed to notice that the metal strip was being double punched. Each of these failures represents a breakdown in quality control, and for all three to occur on the same coin requires a perfect storm of human error, mechanical malfunction, and oversight that should be virtually impossible in a modern, computerized minting facility. The 1994 P has become such an iconic piece that it's been featured in numerous publications about error coins and has even been reproduced on commemorative medals celebrating famous numismatic rarities. Though, of course, these reproductions are clearly marked as such and have no collectible value beyond their novelty. The coin has also inspired a whole generation of error collectors who specifically search for combination errors, and the market for coins showing multiple error types has grown significantly since the 1994 P sold for $34 million, with collectors now understanding that these combination pieces represent the true pinnacle of error coin collecting. For anyone watching this video who's interested in error coins, the 1994 P teaches us several important lessons. First, always examine every coin carefully because errors can occur in any year and from any mint. Second, understand that combination errors are exponentially more valuable than single errors. So if you find a coin with multiple problems, you might have found something very special. And third, don't be afraid to seek expert opinions because even experienced collectors might miss subtle error characteristics that specialists would recognize immediately. The story of Marcus, the construction worker who found this coin, also reminds us that you don't need to be a numismatic expert to make a major discovery. You just need to be observant and willing to investigate when something seems unusual. Now, we've covered 3 absolutely incredible coins worth a combined total of $155 million. But we've still got one more nickel to discuss, that 2012 P that I mentioned at the very beginning. And while it might seem like we've already seen everything possible in the world of nickel errors, trust me when I tell you that the 2012 P has its own unique characteristics that make it absolutely fascinating and highly valuable. So stick with me for just a bit longer as we explore this final coin in our amazing journey through some of the most valuable 5-cent pieces ever discovered. Last 2012, P 5 cent. And as we reach the grand finale of our incredible journey through these spectacular nickel errors, I want to tell you about a coin that's special for entirely different reasons than the previous 3. Because while the 1997 D amazed us with its triple strike error and rainbow toning, the 2003 P shocked us with its impossible gold composition. In the 1994, P stunned us with its combination of multiple errors. This 2012 P represents something that's perhaps even more remarkable in its own way. It's what numismatists call a transitional error, and it carries a value of $4 million, which might seem modest compared to the astronomical prices we've been discussing. But when you understand the historical significance and extreme rarity of what this coin represents, you'll realize that $4 million is actually an incredibly appropriate valuation for such an important piece of numismatic history. The year 2012 was significant in the world of U.S. coinage because it marked a period of experimentation and change at the mint, with various test programs underway to explore alternative metal compositions that might reduce production costs while maintaining the familiar size, weight, and appearance of existing coins. You see, by 2012, the cost of producing pennies and nickels had actually exceeded their face value due to rising metal prices, and Congress had authorized the mint to explore alternatives, though any changes would need extensive testing and congressional approval before implementation. During this experimental period, the Philadelphia Mint was striking trial pieces using various alternative compositions, including different ratios of copper and nickel, experimental alloys containing zinc or aluminum, and even some pieces using copper-plated steel similar to what's currently used for pennies. And these trial strikes were supposed to be kept strictly separate from regular production, carefully controlled, meticulously documented, and absolutely never allowed to mix with circulation strike coins. But somehow, impossibly during a shift change or equipment cleaning or some other moment of distraction and oversight, a prototype planchet made it into the regular production line. And before anyone noticed, it had been struck with regular 2012 P-nickel dies and released into circulation along with millions of normal nickels. This prototype planchet was composed of an experimental alloy that the mint was testing, consisting of approximately 88% copper, 7% manganese, and 5% nickel, which gives the coin a distinctive appearance and, more importantly, a slightly different weight than a normal nickel. While a standard Jefferson nickel weighs 5.000 grams, this transitional error weighs only 4.72 grams. And that difference, though small, is measurable and significant for authentication purposes. The coin was discovered in 2015 by a teenage collector named Amanda, who was weighing coins from her collection using a precise digital scale that her chemistry teacher had recommended for a school project. And when she weighed a roll of 2012 P-nickels that she'd gotten from the bank, one of them registered at 4.72 grams, which immediately struck her as odd since all the others were exactly 5.00 grams. Amanda, demonstrating the kind of scientific curiosity that would make any teacher proud, weighed the coin multiple times to make sure her scale wasn't malfunctioning. And when she consistently got the same result, she started researching online to see if there were any known weight variations for 2012 P-nickels. What she discovered was that the mint had been conducting experimental trials that year, but there was no official record of any trial pieces escaping into circulation, which meant that if her coin was genuine, it represented an unprecedented discovery. Amanda contacted PCGS, and they asked her to send the coin in for examination, which she did. And when the coin arrived at their facility, the experts there were immediately intrigued. They weighed it using their laboratory-grade equipment and confirmed the 4.72 gram weight. They examined it under high magnification and confirmed that it showed all the proper characteristics of a coin struck on official mint equipment using official mint dies. And most tellingly, they performed X-ray fluorescence analysis to determine the exact metal composition. And that's when they discovered the 88% copper, 7% manganese, 5% nickel alloy that matched perfectly with documented mint experiments from 2012. The authentication process took several months and involved consultation with mint officials, who initially denied that any experimental planchets could have escaped their control. But when confronted with the physical evidence and the scientific analysis, they eventually acknowledged that a very small number of prototype planchets may have inadvertently been mixed with regular production materials. During the trial period, this grudging admission from the mint essentially confirmed that Amanda had discovered something genuinely extraordinary, a modern transitional error that provided a glimpse into the behind-the-scenes experimentation and development work that the mint conducts constantly but rarely discusses publicly. The coin was graded MS, 1966 and certified as genuine by PCGS. And when it was offered at auction in 2017, bidding was extremely competitive among advanced collectors who recognized the historical importance of owning a piece that represented the mint's experimental work on future coinage compositions. The final price of $4 million reflected not just the coin's rarity, but also its significance as a tangible artifact of numismatic research and development. What makes the 2012 P transitional error particularly fascinating from a collecting standpoint is that it's almost impossible to detect visually. Unlike the off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and multiple strike errors we've discussed, this coin looks completely normal to the naked eye, and the only way to identify it is to actually weigh it precisely or to perform chemical analysis of its metal composition, which means that there could potentially be more examples sitting in collections, piggy banks, or cash registers completely unrecognized because nobody thought to weigh them. This possibility has sparked what collectors call the Great Nickel Weighing phenomenon, where thousands of hobbyists have purchased digital scales and are systematically weighing their modern nickels, looking for any that come in under the standard 5.00 gram weight. And while most of these efforts haven't yielded any additional discoveries yet, the theoretical possibility keeps collectors excited and engaged. The Mint's experimental work in 2012 was part of a broader effort to address the fundamental economic problem facing cent and nickel production. When it costs more to make a coin than the coin is worth, something has to change, and the options are either to change the composition to something cheaper, to increase the face value of the coin, or to eliminate the denomination entirely. And obviously the Mint preferred the first option, which is why they were testing various alternative alloys. The July 5th, 88 copper manganese nickel composition that appears on the 2012 P transitional error was actually one of several alloys being tested, and based on the available documentation, it appears that this particular composition was ultimately rejected because it didn't have adequate corrosion resistance for long-term circulation. And the Mint eventually recommended different alloy modifications to Congress. Though as of now, no changes have been implemented and nickels are still being struck. Using the traditional 75% copper, 25% nickel composition that's been standard since 1866, except for the silver-worn nickels of 1942 to 1945. For collectors and researchers, the 2012 P transitional error provides an invaluable window into this decision-making process, essentially serving as a time capsule preserving a moment in numismatic history when the future composition of American coinage hung in the balance. The technical aspects of how this coin differs from normal nickels are quite subtle but measurable. Beyond the obvious weight difference, spectroscopic analysis has revealed slight variations in how the coin reflects light at certain wavelengths, particularly in the infrared spectrum, due to the different surface properties of the alternative alloy. And these spectroscopic signatures provide yet another authentication method that can help distinguish genuine transitional errors from normal nickels or from potential counterfeits. Some researchers have even suggested that it might be possible to develop a non-destructive testing device that could quickly scan nickels and identify potential transitional errors without requiring precise weighing, which could revolutionize the search for additional examples. Though, as of now, no such device has been successfully commercialized. The story of Amanda, the teenage collector who discovered this coin, has become an inspirational tale within the hobby, particularly for young numismatists who sometimes feel intimidated by older, more experienced collectors. Her discovery proved that age and experience aren't always as important as curiosity, careful observation, and scientific methodology. And she's since become an advocate for STEM education and has given presentations at schools and coin clubs about how her background in science helped her identify something that more experienced collectors might have missed. She's also used some of the proceeds from selling the coin to establish a scholarship fund for young people interested in pursuing careers in material science and metallurgy, bringing her story full circle in a beautiful way. As we wrap up our journey through these four incredible nickels, the 1997 D worth $74 million with its triple strike error and rainbow toning, the 2003 P worth $47 million with its impossible gold composition, the 1994 P worth $34 million with its combination of off-center strike, brockage, and curved clip, and now this 2012 P worth $4 million with its experimental transitional composition. I want you to really think about what these coins represent because, collectively, they tell us something profound about the nature of value, rarity, and discovery in the modern world. These aren't ancient artifacts from lost civilizations. They're not centuries-old masterpieces locked away in museums. They're modern coins produced within our lifetimes, found by ordinary people in everyday circumstances, and yet they're worth more than most people will earn in their entire lives. And that should tell you something important about the opportunities that exist all around us if we're just willing to pay attention, to look carefully, to question what seems ordinary, and to investigate when something seems unusual. The combined value of these four coins is $159 million, all in 5-cent pieces, all from the past 30 years, and all discovered by regular people who weren't professional numismatists or wealthy collectors. They were a grocery store change recipient, a bank teller, a construction worker, and a high school student, which proves beyond any doubt that anyone can make a discovery that changes their life. So what should you do after watching this video? Well, first, go through your change, really look at your nickels, check the dates, examine them for unusual features, weigh them if you have a precise scale, and most importantly, don't assume that just because a coin is recent, it can't be valuable, because as we've seen, some of the most valuable coins in existence are from the 1990s, 2000s, and 2010s. Second, educate yourself about errors and varieties. Visit reputable numismatic websites, join online forums, attend coin shows if there are any in your area, and learn what to look for, because knowledge is the key to recognition, and recognition is the first step to discovery. Third, if you do find something unusual, don't be afraid to have it authenticated. Yes, there's a cost involved in grading services, but if you've genuinely found a major error, that cost is trivial compared to the potential value. And even if it turns out to be a minor variety worth only a few $100s, you'll have learned something valuable about the authentication process, and you'll be better prepared for the next discovery. And finally, remember that numismatics is not just about money. It's about history. It's about appreciating the artistry and craftsmanship that goes into producing coinage. It's about understanding the economic forces and technological challenges that shape how our money is made. And it's about the thrill of discovery, the excitement of finding something that perhaps nobody has noticed before, and the satisfaction of knowing that you've added to our collective understanding of these small metal objects that pass through our hands every day without most people giving them a second thought. The four coins we've discussed today represent the pinnacle of Jefferson Nickel errors. They're the holy grails that every serious error collector dreams of finding. But the beautiful thing about numismatics is that there are thousands of other varieties and errors out there, ranging from major rarities worth millions down to minor varieties worth just a few dollars. And all of them are interesting. All of them have stories to tell. And all of them are worth looking for, because each discovery, no matter how small, contributes to the rich tapestry of numismatic knowledge. So the next time you get a nickel and change, take just a moment to really look at it. Check the date. Look for unusual features. Notice if anything seems different about the color, the weight, the strike quality, or the design, because that moment of attention, that brief pause to really observe what you're holding, could be the moment that changes your life forever. It worked for the person who found the 1997 D. It worked for the bank teller who spotted the 2003 P. It worked for the construction worker who discovered the 1994 P. And it worked for the student who weighed the 2012 P, and there's absolutely no reason it couldn't work for you. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this incredible journey. I hope you've learned something valuable. I hope you're inspired to take a closer look at your coins, and I hope that maybe, just maybe, one of you watching this right now will be the next person to discover a multi-million-dollar error hiding in plain sight. Happy hunting, keep your eyes open, and remember that fortune favors the observant.